Welcome back to the channel and another of our World Cup design playthroughs, and in this one we're going to play Asilomar Trail by Irish Golf, and this was another deadline publish, and it is in Group C. So this goes into a horrible group of death. So I think this one has Tanner, whose course I really enjoyed yesterday, or the day before, I can't remember. Matef and Honey Badger with one of the many Pine Valleys. So there's loads. Yeah, this one's got a challenge. Now, what is said? Play from black tees, excellent. One manipulated tee because the whole plays better. Play defaults. Favourite wind would be west or northwest. Let's go medium. I've done a lot of west, so let's go northwest for variety. He says Mackenzie-inspired bunkers golf course plays along three distinct features of land, wood, dunes, and ocean. I guess we can tell what this is inspired. Yeah, Cypress Point. Cool. Well, you immediately set the bar pretty high if you're pulling from Cypress Point because it's, in most people's estimation, the best course in the world. So, fingers crossed. I don't know much about Irish golf. I remember he was in the CC Court contest that I didn't judge and had a course that I played that I think I liked. Clearly the Pacific Grove Muni. Pacific Grove is good as well. Okay. There's kind of nowhere to hide with Cypress Point as an influence. Like, your bunkering has got to be really flipping good. The rock work's got to be great. The dune work has got to be great. Especially when you've had 17 mile club, which I take some credit for with the whole designs, but nothing with the planting, which is what I refer to with that course. The planting on that and the bunkering was all Jamie, and it's phenomenal. As for these bunkers, they're kind of doing Mackenzie things, and the placements are. I like this one. I think you probably want to get a bit more jagged with the edges, and that's tough to tell you now, and it takes a lot of time. But it's certainly a cool style to draw from. But yeah, load. I mean, time has clearly gone into this course. Where do we go from here? We go all the way through. Okay. We've got some barrancas and stuff, and we have ocean holes. I'm looking forward to this vista from this green. That's great. Big dune. Okay, so if you've done your research on Cypress Point, then part of what makes it outstanding is the routing, which is centered around. People think it's the ocean. The real center point is a big dune that houses 4 greens and 3 tees, I think, if memory serves rightly. But also, and so how that was used as a backdrop for loads of different holes is outstanding. It obviously has the coastal finish that everyone remembers, but that would be the thing that I would be looking at the most. Now, I'm not going to hold you to Cypress Point, I promise. Oh, Matty will be happy. On trees, you can use the blurb. Disappointing. He's missed his timing. Yeah. I'm looking forward to digging into this one. Marty is happy. Oh, more for you, Matty. More. Contest over. There we are. Okay. One thing I think might be challenging for you, as you've used a lot of the plot on that big dune, is this area. It feels maybe a little distinct between where you've got woodland, where you've got the dunes, and where you've got the coast. Like, just suddenly have all of these. Like, Cyprus does kind of blend the two together, and it's that transition that maybe I'm a little bit worried about before starting. But there's lots I can see that I really like. And it's, yeah, I don't want to judge, of course, totally from a flyover at the start. And I assume you've got 17, 18. Yeah. You see a bit of a rip. That's okay. I mean, there's a difference between rip and inspired by, right? If you've taken the exact hole, I have an issue with it. If you've gone, like, this hole is something I really want to do my own spin on, all good. Cypress 8. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know the one. Big dog leg around June. Okay. First hole, we've got a really wide fairway. We kind of want to hug this bunker. Straight away, I'd love the bunkering to just be a bit more intricate. I think just it's such a huge part of Cypress Point, and like it absolutely nails those. And planting in the dip, I think, is great. I will stress I'm not going to judge it as if it's Cypress. However, when you say that, it's going to put some thoughts into my head, similar to Pine Valley on the last. Um, but I think you want to go with the really intricate, funky bunkering that Mackenzie nails. Bits of sculpting here, I think, could be a tiny bit cleaner. You can see how it's kind of falling in, and the bunker sculpting, I think we can do a little bit better as well. Honestly, I think these bunkers are. Well, I can tell you now, I'm working on similar bunkers for my major course, and they are extremely challenging, no matter how many hours in the designer you've got. So like, you'll get better at them with practice. I think the back bunker, if we're looking at, say, for example, Cypress 13, which has those bunkers behind it, they're really high up and then built into the tee. I think just integrating your holes together a little bit closer would help. And just be bold with the sculpting. Oh, that's not it. I will say I think the scaling is also probably a little big on just about on everything. Um, although caveat to that would be that the scaling would be fine if the sculpting was bolder. Like the more aggressively you're going to sculpt something, the bigger you want to make it. Oh well, we still made a birdie with three pretty awful shots. Okay. I think the pine straw can be done a little neater as well. Like take a fuzzy brush or one of the really thin ones. It's tough to do this well, or just make it S spline. But I think this is kind of neither one thing nor the other. Um, yeah, with the bunkers. So if you get into Google Earth and go down into like the 3D, yeah, I know. After a 59 in the last round, you go into 3D on Google Earth. What you'll see is like where Mackenzie capes and rises the bunkers is really interesting. So you'd look at things like there'd be a couple of high points in each bunker, it would typically be around about here, and then there'd be an interesting one on here, and like how the two combine. Like you just want to play with that loads, but essentially looking at overhead shapes gives you no idea really how they behave at this angle. So that'd be one thing I'd look at. Okay. I'm not sure I love the contrast between this fringe texture fairway and then light rough. Like these three feel very different. I think the light rough and the fairway are fine. It's the green that's a little off. Okay. I do like the space you've given this hole. The framing on the left is good. I might like a couple of little bits. Grass maybe just under the trees would really help. Just tiny little bits, nothing too crazy, given that it's pine straw. Can't be too afraid of being bumped out of the fairway, I guess, but or can't be too annoyed at it. Yeah, bunkering, lower the bit in front. Play with. You can see how the top edge of the bunkers, it's all very flat, like it's very horizontal. Start taking, say, here. Take a raise tool, that third one across on page one. Raise this up, covering a decent amount of the bunker, and you'll see that this part comes up and it creates like a nice curved sort of line. Do the same here, like kind of middle of. Go with the middle of one of these arcs, and you start seeing some really cool moves. I think once you start playing around with that, you'll see huge benefits. Oh, okay, got a decent lie. Got a backstop. Because I actually think where you're putting the bunkers is good. Just the sculpting that's kind of the sculpting and shaping is kind of what's making them fall a little flat. Nope. There you go, Brennan. We've had two putts through two holes now. Disappointing, but it had to happen. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of what I was worried about because this transition's been really stark between a second ago we were just looking at this and it's all kind of pure parkland. And if you look on the right hand side and what we're working with, and then suddenly you swing around to this and it's like a totally new course. Like what we'd be looking to try to do it. So in terms of transitions between styles, if I'll fiction, um, either it would be bringing the planting in this way so that we get a taste of it on this hole, or it'd be orienting this green some way so that you see this hole coming and like you gradually change. Certainly trying to gradually change the planting. I get that you've done a little bit of it here, but it's not really working enough. Again, having the grasses under the pine straw might have helped. Bringing that area in on the left hand side of this one, maybe. It just it takes time, and changing between environments is one of the toughest things to do. This bunker is one of the best ones you've done. This one's really good. Because you've got the size right. That makes a big difference. And the planting in the dunes, I think you just need to be a bit more subtle with what you're doing with the grasses. Like they're quite heavy and big. And if you look at 17 Mile or Calamity, you've got a lot of like smaller sunken grasses and things. And there's kind of no way around it. It's just really time consuming and detailed work. As a golf hole, really like this one. I think all of the little nitpicks I've just given you aside, I think the amount of space you've given it is good on its own. I think it looks good from the tee. It renders well. Um, yeah, I like that we're just seeing those bunkers peeking through. Feels maybe a little bit more spyglass than it's cypress, but that's no bad thing. Um, and I think the green shape and the sloping on it is good as well. Yeah, so do take positives. It's definitely not all negative. Just when you reference a course that I know well, I've got a little bit more to give. And I kind of view these playthroughs always as I'm going to give you everything I've got. And then, yeah, some you'll agree with, some you don't. That's normal. Cool. Okay, so still in that kind of, yeah, we're in that kind of barrankery area. Now, I would probably like to see more of that planting come up to here because this bit feels a little bit empty. And you probably could have used closing off this area maybe a touch more. I think I'm gonna guess that you were struggling with the meter by the end of this. I think you just gave yourself too much to do with the routing. This one's got a little nod to 2, I think, with the bunker placement and the barranca where it is. I'm just going to hit somewhere over here. Yeah. I do like the spacing of the bunkers. I think you've got them right. Like the positioning of the bunkers, you've got like where this one is, where this one is, where this one is, this one as well. It's just the shaping and sculpting that like will come with practice. I like the tree integration with this. I just like this planting to extend a little bit more. Again, if you take Jamie's stuff on 17 Mile and look at that, you never see a planting spot that isn't integrated with stuff around it. And I think that's something everyone can learn from. Certainly I did. Love the trees you've used over here and the space you've got. I mean, granted, I love these new trees. I think they look great. Particularly this fella in the middle. He's awesome. And I love the framing behind the green. Like, there's so much good. I just think you gave yourself maybe a little bit too much to work from. But I appreciate you going bold in a contest. Like, 100% do it. And the grass blend you've got back there, I thought was really nice. Oh, it was in the Barranca. But above here, like this grass blend, much better than the like clumpy stuff we had on the behind 3. I think go with this a bit more. Mm. Oh, I would love a 17 Mile Rene. I also need to redo 18 because I just don't like that hole that much. I've bought that one so many times. Most of the others probably still hold up. This is a good look. Okay, so this is our transition out to the coast, and it's a good way to do it. Like, coast to the behind the golf hole is for me the best way to transition out to a coastal hole because it's not really in play, but it very much looks like it is. You've done some good work with the rocks here. I think you will tidy this up with time because there's a lot of different types, and yeah, you can do it a little neater with fewer rock. This will be a pain because I know this will have taken you so long, and it's one of the things I learned is just actually fewer rocks better placed and bigger generally works better. Um, yeah, there's an innuendo in that. Really like the hole. That way we could land a driver there. It's going to come into play more for shorter bunkers, shorter drivers. The longer driver, I like the combination of this bunker and this bunker to make me think where I'm landing with. And the little slope here works really nicely. You give me all world to lay up. I don't want to. Missed some annoying parts though. Ah. Oh, don't go that way. That's the worst time for the grey fast. Are we out of bounds? Shame. Deservedly so. Like, that's an awful miss. Right, well, we're definitely driving it now. I know, I know, I know. Oh, and I could have aimed so far further right. The little stairway you've done is really nice. Yeah, I think just the planting around the green can occasionally get a little bit big, and I think that's partly because we're fighting with meter and used to making stuff big. As a little aside, I would always be very careful about drivable greens that go front to back, just because it's very easy to end up with the ball just flying all the way through them. But I think I can probably execute that a little bit better. I'm glad you kept clouds on, because I think this dynamic lighting you've got really fits this style of course. Actually, I might go as far as to say you've nailed the lighting. I really liked it where it was before. I absolutely love it now. I think this gives a really good vibe. And this hole looks great. I would love this bunker to be doing a little bit more with caping at the top. Same with this one. Try and do it on the top rather than the bottom. Because I think it's, again, you've got them all in the right places. The rocks look great. Like, the space you've given the hole is brilliant. It's just the bunkers that could just use a little bit more. I really like the par three. Um, Bunker placements, that is. The green, I think, I'm not sure I love the spine and where it's interacting with this pin. And I think for the other pins, it's maybe a little bit safe, and it's just once you hit the green, you're on the green, which obviously sounds like a tautology, but like, I don't know. Long par threes, I think you need some sort of ground game or slopes to funnel the ball towards certain pins. I'm not sure this really does it for this pin, and it definitely helps for this one, but this is the most accessible pin. We don't really need a backstop here. So, like, how can we get balls towards this pin, for example? So this would be the sort of hole where I'd be looking at maybe a diagonal ridge or a mound here, which therefore means that for this pin, actually, you want to be challenging this bunker a little bit more and coming this way, otherwise you're going that way, stuff like that. Okay. Well, not on the green. I'm really enjoying it. I think Cyprus is such a great course to draw from. And I'm glad someone went this route. I was hoping someone would this contest. Okay. Par 5 with a Matty tree. This is Pebble, right? This is the Pebble 18, albeit with a very different green and bunker configuration. I don't mind the central tree. I'd probably put light rough around it, but minor. Big backstop, little fall off. Yeah, the planting looks good. I think you'll get better at it, but I think it looks good. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Matty's just saying that because of the tree. So there's a little bit of the core Crenshaw stuff to it. I don't know about the sloping is the only thing. Because the core Crenshaw is always about that kind of slope from it's very much pebble right the way down to the little wall in the bunker. But there's enough on like I know there was a comment about Cypress Point 8 earlier. There was enough on this one that differentiates it, I think. And like you've used it as a leaping off point, but it's still your hole. I can clearly tell this is inspired by and not a copy. This June stuff looks better from a distance. It was just maybe a bit too close to the green. On, on three, that is. And actually, looking back up, the rock work looks good. Okay, this one visually maybe a little bit similar to the previous par three on the six. Just in terms of setting, but hard not to crutch on these sorts of sites, so I'm not knocking it. Um, Again, I don't know the green's doing too much for me. It's kind of distance control, but it's really just three tiers, just sloped front to back. I feel like this is a great spot for, I don't know, if you look at what Cypress Point 15 does, like that kind of green that has a, like you do want a pin over here, but I feel like this is just like, let's just put a more simple green here, but just tempt people to bite off as much as they can chew. I don't know if this is really doing it as well for me. But again, I think you've taken a chance with how you've played this one. And you have given, and to be fair, I've got an option as to how I get to the pin, and I've got danger for going long, which I've done. So like, I can't critique it too much. It just doesn't work all that well for me, if I'm honest. How do I shoot 12 under on Crizzies and 13 under on Crizzies, and then we're one under here? Okay. Another sort of. This is more Cypress 17. I really like the green and where you've put it around, and the way you've integrated the bunker into the green's good. Wonder whether you could have tied this bunker in with the waste area and just like join the two. I think that would make it really sit nicely. And I imagine if this kind of all became a bit more ragged and this bunker feels a bit more formulaic as well in shape. It's like a more standard bunker was dumped on this really natural course. Like if you ragged this one up a little bit, join it to the waste bunker, I think that does so much for this hole. Um, okay, I think somewhere up here, and we're probably all right. Pulled it a touch, probably okay. I think I'd probably be playing that shot for all of the pins, but I can see why you might encourage people to. You probably could have tucked this pin a bit more, encourage people to play even further left. I'm not sure I ever take this angle over getting to here. Kind of because it's a dog leg as well, so it's always going to be a shorter approach from here than out to here, which means you don't necessarily extend the angle quite as much as you'd like. Please hit a tempo. Yeah, ish. Oh, well, we held a putt though. I noticed it on the other one, but bunker sculpting on those back two again would be something I'd look at. Just the kind of aggressively flattened in parts and then not so much with others. But I do love how this is, I would say, your best sightline so far. Maybe. I don't think of any others. I really liked six, but the way the bunkers layer on this is great. Like, and that'll be the main But the main positive thing I'd say from this is like your bunker placement and layering and the way they work together, top notch. It's been really, really good. Because when I get up closer, I'm just like, yeah, I'd probably change the shaping, and I think you can do a bit more with them. But from the tee, they look fantastic, and the way these two link together looks really good. For example, this almost gives me Royal Melbourne 18 vibes, like with the green complex. I guess the strategy for this one was more hug the high side, but I kind of just want to be with a wedge in hand. I kind of just want to be close. Like the green, this is has got all it needs on it. Mm, no, never gave that enough. Again, you can kind of see some just spinning around for a second. For how densely planted these areas are, you can kind of really tell when it isn't. So underneath the trees, and I know there's pine straw, but it doesn't really cut it in a contest, unfortunately. And I think all of that is kind of caused by how much of the plot you've tried to cover, rather than taking stuff in a little bit closer. We're about to get to the giant dune area where I think you might have bitten off a bit too much. Okay. This is going to be one of those hard ones to explain, but I don't really like this, I'm afraid. It's just a bit too S-bendy and windy. And it's like either you play here and then you go for the green, or you're doing the here to here to here. And it doesn't actually have that many options because of how windy it is. There's a real life hole that does something similar, which I absolutely despise. I'm not going to go to that strength of feeling on this one, but at Whistling Straits, there's the fifth hole, which I think is an abomination, and it does something similar. And I think if you have a look at that, you might kind of get the idea of kind of what it is about this one I don't love. I do what it is doing. I guess at least it's interesting. It's forcing me to make a carryover waste bunker I may not make. But it just feels a little bit one dimensional. And in a way that your previous par five didn't. I think the previous, yeah, that kind of Pebble 18th style hole I thought did really nicely. It also, this is a vast departure, this style of fairway and where you've cut it from all of the previous holes. It doesn't, like, none of them do this really wide arcing around hazards. That's kind of another, when we talk about transitions between holes, it's partly also how much are you kind of consistent with how the holes are within those environments. That one was a little bit jarring. Okay. Part three, kind of same comments as the junior area on three. It's just a little heavily planted for me. And the green is simple but effective. Like, you've got a backstop that you can use, or you carry it all the way to the top. It is a little bit one dimensional. It's either you're hitting the right tier and you've got a birdie putt, or you're not and you've got a horrible two putt, which isn't my favourite kind of golf. I think your other par threes have been doing more interesting things so far. Certainly three, certainly not nine. I can't remember. Maybe six, seven, seven, because it went 3-5-3, didn't it? See if I'm right. Oh, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, if I did go 3-5-3 though. Yeah, really like three, really like six, liked eight a little bit less, but all of them were doing really interesting things with the green. That was just more a bit like the standard Parkland. We've kind of run out of ideas. Yeah, this is possibly a little bit close to Cypress 8. It's a great hole, but the only difference this has is I think the Cypress 8 has the tier up here that's high. It does a little bit, yeah. It's even to the green shape. Like I'd have just change a few things. Take the idea, hitting a like yeah, yeah. Rhino knows what we're talking about. It's just yeah. I don't dislike the hole. It's just it's kind of more of a copy than your whole. And then, of course, where we're a contest where you're designing fictional courses, there is a line, and it's really hard to define where the line is. But I think if you're not changing some significant stuff about whole that you're inspired by, then you probably want to find something else to do. Um, because previously all of the nods have been really, really good. Like compare this one with the Pebble 18 par 5 that you had earlier. It is longer, that's true, but that could just be for making it in this game, really. Okay, so we're back to the woodland pass. Visually, kind of the flattest hole on the course, in that I think this is also. You look at the amount of planting you're or space you're not using. I feel like you could have routed this one better because you just had to plant so much just to give this hole something, and tying it in closer with other environments would have really helped. I think this is part where we're starting to see that the plant meter was really strained. As a whole, the tee shots just yeah. As a whole, this one's doing less for me as well. I don't know. Maybe this is one you blew up multiple times. Maybe it isn't. I feel like it. This isn't. I'm gonna. I don't mind the. Tell you what I do like. Try and find one thing I like on each hole. Um, I don't mind the bunker in front, but I do like the planting behind it, and like the little bridge and the tie-in is nice. Like the little amphitheater kind of green site is good. The green itself, I don't. I think it's a little bit big, but I like the runoff towards the back. Works well, but yeah, this is probably the weakest hole on the course, I would say. And it's just had too little to work with because I think you spent the meter elsewhere. I guess you're just trying to yeah. I'm gonna fly around the routing again at the end because I had my suspicions at the start and they're much stronger now. All right. This green's more interesting. The green site's great. Again, like you've got all of this dunescape and then you've got manufactured bunkers around them. These two I get. Like this shape's interesting. This one less so. Bring the bunkers into the like have the bunkers literally bleed out of the dunescape. Like that would work so much better. I do like this tee shot. The fairway's narrower than we've had any than any we've had before. But that's all right. Makes a change after the last one, and those two like for all that I didn't really love the last hole, they do work well in tandem. Ah, well, that's not the place to miss. Cool to get a view of the coast. I'm hoping we're kind of working back down there for 17 and 18, which I don't know what I remembered. Can't really see which way the beads are going. Oh, right to left, right to left. Who knows? Yeah, it was straight. Okay, 16, 17, 18. Give us your best three. Green may be a little bit simple, and that red slope in the middle is very severe. Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't love it. Really, I think if I hug those bunkers, I guess I get a slightly better look around the tier, but I don't think it totally matters. This bunker could be doing some really good things with the shapes that you've got. again, if you just raised some of those and brought those capes a little bit further in, like that's got all kind of sandbelt sculpting potential, which would have been brilliant and kind of given the illusion of like three bunkers there rather than just one. That went that went way off. $17. There are definite like I've mentioned one kind of Whistling Straits element. The other one is that Whistling Straits, one of the main things I dislike about it is you have all four par threes playing in basically two directions across the coast. Now, you haven't quite done that, but we've had a like it would have been cool to see a par three in each of those environments. We never really had the woodlands kind of par three where you make it stand out with the bunkering. I think it's kind of important not to chuck all of the par threes on the coast, or if you do, try to make them different as however you possibly can do. Um, this one's a really good look though. Like that. That being said, I really like this bunker. I think that works well. I really like the cliffside. I would lose the pink, or I'd kind of merge it in with something else and not have it on its own. I really like the path. This planting is some of the best you've done. Like this grass stuff and the choice of grasses and the heavy rough terrain below it, and this sort of bush and these little trees, all of this stuff is the best visually that you like. This is the stuff I would have wanted you to do more. I think that's the best planting you've got on the course. Now, my one big dislike about this hole is it is just a triple tiered green. And like, if you're going to do this, try to think of something, ideally try to think of something a little bit more interesting than just testing distance control. And if not, we're putting up a tier. It's like, I don't know, this will come across as harsh, but it smacks of I just didn't have an idea of what to do with the green. Um, what I would suggest is use this as a starting point and then start softening. Might say like flatten half of the tier, and then you've got a little spine that comes in and a flatter area here. Now, the reason I would tend to do it on this side is because if you flatten this area, well, then you're encouraging people to hit closer to the cliff, and that's your biggest danger and where you want people to be taking on. Whereas if they hit this side and they bail too far away, well, they've got to deal with this feature, which is less scary than a cliff, but still no picnic. On the front, could we do something else other than this? Could we have a mound in front of the green? Could we have a little pimple in the middle? Could we have even something as simple as the whole green slopes pretty hard from left to right? So you want to be on this side of the green because you'll be below the hop, which means taking on cliffside. But yeah, there's been too many times I think where the greens have just been defined by one tier, and I wouldn't say it screams Redan. I don't think so. It's not quite at the angle. The land isn't really doing that, but I think it cool. Like I don't know. And honestly, it's quite a long hole, so it could work. I don't know, but it's not where I'd put a triple tiered green. Like where I'd put a vertical tiered green is always when I want to put pressure on. Do you have the right club selection? And it's a really simple question. So I typically would look at pairing that with like a narrows tee shot, something like that, where you're asking people, well, if you take on the gap, then you've got a shorter club in, which is going to make it easier for you to hold the right tier. But when you're forcing a 200-yard club in my hands, yeah, I like it a little less. Okay, and 18 par 4, we would hope hit down the right, but actually, if I hit down the right and take on the cliffs, I get a worse angle. So I kind of want to be over here. That said, I do like this bunker a lot. This one, and the planting and the way this one sits in the rocks is awesome. Also appreciate the work you've done with the fence. Yeah, it's one spline and sinking it, but it looks really, really good. Again, we've got a little tear in the green, and that's kind of about it. This one's doing a bit more. In fairness, you've got this slope coming in across the side, and you've got a bit more feeding in from the left. This is a really good looking finisher. With the delta trees just here, take the very edge of your plot, which you're obviously really close to, and like drop it as much as you possibly can using like the really tight square. Advanced edit it so it's as thin as it possibly can be, and just drop the edge of the plot as much as you can, and those will kind of disappear a bit more as they. Like, you always deal with it, but they look a little bit odd. Okay, just don't go on the beach and we're fine. I would have liked more of a benefit for hugging the right hand side, but this is a great looking finishing shot. And as much as I would have liked you to be aggressive on some of the bunker sculpting, I think the low profile nature of this bunker really fits. The lighting is doing it a lot of favours, granted. But I think this one looks really good. And even then, it is still a little bit bumpy. Like, I think we can probably do some circle brushes in here, because where it puffs is usually where you've got shapes not quite overlapping. And again, this planting's the best stuff you've been doing. The coastal area generally has been the best realised of the three environments. And I love I would have raised the green or lowered the planting behind the green about a foot, because you want to see that green that flag just against the sky and none of the planting behind it. That's the smallest nitpick I've got. I actually really like that as a closer. It's not the No, it's not the most strategic hole, but I really like it. Oh, how has that gone right? Game. Okay. Now I will appreciate I have given you a lot there, and I will say I'm saying it with a smile. I'm sitting here on the end of that round with a smile on my face. I really enjoyed the round, and that's the most important thing. And what I quite like about that playthrough is that I do have a ton of feedback to give you, which means, and I think there's a lot of stuff that you'll improve with really quickly. The routing will be a key thing for you. I think that's what caused a lot of the problems that you did have. And also, you were really ambitious with what you drew from. Like, if you're going Cypress Point and you're saying there's three main environments, that's not just one environment you have to nail for planting. Like, see, the playthrough I did for Enchanted Rock yesterday. Like, yeah, it's a slightly diverse environment, but that's one environment. You took on three, and that's really difficult. Additionally, you then spread them out a load, so you had a ton. Not only did you have to nail that, you had to nail it across a lot of space. If you look at 17 Mile I'm going to keep citing it, not because I think it's the best course there, but because it's one I can reference pretty clearly. Like, the routing there's pretty tight, and even then we hit 100% meter, which turned into 115% when we ported it. Um, so I think with the planting style you were going for and a really expansive routing, you were always up against it. Like, the level of planting you had to go into requires so much meter, that you couldn't do the routing that you did. And the dunes area really suffered a bit because of it. The area that really suffered was the woodland area, because that was just the underbrush didn't happen, and it really needed it, unfortunately. Now, the positives. I thought the coastal holes were really, really good. I liked them a lot. I thought the par threes were generally really, really good, and they mostly did very interesting things. My exception would probably be 17, although I didn't much care for 12 as much either. But the first three, I thought at least you were trying to do like things that weren't just point here and hit here. Like, keep going with that. And certainly six, I thought had a really good setting. It would have been cool to see one of them in the woodland area. My main takeaways really would be you've got the bunker placement down, keep working on the shaping and the sculpting, and just like really trying to take as much from the course that you're inspired by, and like dig into planting. How are the bunkers sculpted? How big are they? Like, what do they look like from ground level? What do the greens do? Like, that sort of thing. Um, and then when you are kind of inspired by a hole on a course, you can't copy it pretty much exactly. What you did on 7, for example, was great. What happened on 13, less so. So those would be the changes I'd make, really. I think you're in a tough group, but there's loads to enjoy, and what I'm really pleased with is you've you've given it everything. You've gone with a really like challenging type of course to nail, and you're going to get a ton of feedback from it. And I think you'll learn pretty quickly because the courses I've played of yours have gotten steadily better. So I hope this will really help. As ever, do please reach out if you have any comments or you want to engage in dialogue about this afterwards. It's very much not just a here's what I think, you deal with it. Like, have a conversation. Like, we'll talk about anything that doesn't quite make sense, or actually if there's stuff that you vehemently disagree with, like I kind of want to hear that as well. So yeah, that's this playthrough done. Now I'm hoping I might be able to get another couple done tonight. I really need to because I want to wrap up judging ideally by the weekend so that any close calls, the whole judging group can play them, so that anything that's close between 2 and 3 or 1 and 2 or what have you, we can play them all as a group and then kind of come up to a decision on that. So therefore, I'm going to try and crack on with 2 more tonight. I'm hoping those are going to be Granger and Q's, so then I can get finished with Group B. I'm basically just trying to tick off the groups I've got left. So yeah, those of you who are still here, thank you for joining along. Those of you on YouTube, again, go and play the course. It's really enjoyable. And yeah, there's some flaws and things I would have changed, but it's still a really fun round of golf. See you later.